Guys, welcome to Java JSM, and in this video we can talk about what is the custom query in the Spring Data JPA, and in the Spring Data JPA what is the flexibility to execute the custom query and how we can do what are the way we have. So simply in the Spring Data JPA we have one annotation called @query. So with the help of these annotations we can easily execute our HQL query or maybe the native query also. So this is very important annotation which is helping to introduce the custom query in a Spring Data JPA. So this query annotation is supporting two types of the query. One is HQL. So by default it's supporting the HQL, means Hibernate query language. Okay, and second one is nothing but SQL language. SQL means what? SQL, simple SQL, which we are learning in the our database, like we are writing a query in the database for the maybe MySQLs or Oracle. Those are the SQL query. Okay. Okay, so this is the two types of the query. It's going to support by the @query annotations. That is very important. So I'm going to introduce each and everything, like how you can use it. Okay, so let's go to the STS, and I have already created one project called ORM. So let's copy this project and paste it here and just change the name of this project, like Spring Data JPA query or custom query. You can write custom query. So this is our project name which we have created. So based on that, what are the dependencies are required, it will go and it will download it. Okay, let's see the configurations. So if you go to the src main resources application.yml file, I think already we have a configurations for that our database. So if you see, we have given the database configurations here, and this is the ORM properties, okay, which I have already explained, and using the database called tempdb. Okay, fine. So this is the configurations we have for this website. If you go to the tempdb schema having this table called user table, only one tables, and these are the records we have. Okay, what we have to do is we have to write the custom query. Okay, custom query in the Spring Data JPA. So let's go to our main class. So here if you see, this is our repository. Okay, I don't want all those things. Okay, so let me remove it. Just we want a repository, that's it. And if you go to entity class, so let's see the entity class. So in the entity class we have a one table mapping, which is user table mapping, and this is the column mapping, which is user ID, username, and password or email. If you see the database, user ID, username, password or emails, this is the entity mapping. That is fine. Okay, if you go to the repository class, so I am using the JPA repository here. Okay, and in the last class we have seen like how to fetch the data based on the non-primary key, based on the name, based on the email, based on the email and name both, based on name and password. So all those things we have done in the last class. I don't want those also. Okay, done. So now our application is very clean. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to write the custom query in the JPA. Okay, so what we can do, we can write one method. So what I am to do is fetch data from table with HQL query, with HQL, Hibernate query language. So I'm going to write one methods. Let's see the methods. Public, I don't want to write public, it's already interface, so by default it will be public. So I will write what I'm going to return, list of user entity. So I'm going to write user entity. This is the list, and this is the user entity, user entity, and the method name is get all user data, simple methods. I don't want to pass any parameter, it's a very simple method. So if you see, it's not a find by method, it's not a inbuilt method also. So what I have written our own method, and in that method I am going to annotate one annotation called at the rate query. Okay, it's coming from the Spring Data JPA. Inside the query we have one part called here you have to pass your query. Okay, so if you know the SQL query, so SQL query what saying is whatever the query you are writing, so don't start from the select, because by default it will going to select. So start from table name. So instead of writing a table name, write your entity name. So I will write the user entity. So from user entity, okay, select a star from user entity. So I have just written user entity from user entity, that's it. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pass anything else. Okay, and this is the, if you see the table name is user table, but we are doing work on user entity because of the SQL query. Let me show you. Okay, so if you go to the Spring Data JPA, okay, so how we are going to write a SQL query is from user entity. So every time you have to work with the class name, which is user entity class name, or user entity variable name. You don't want to going to write a code based on the your table name or table column name in the SQL. So in the SQL we are just focusing on the entity class, and based on the entity class we are preparing the query that is called Hibernate SQL. Okay, so this query is already prepared. What I am going to do is, here you can pass value or not also, it's a optional, so it's your choice. Okay, if you not give also it's fine. Okay, so we have prepared one query which is get user data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to my main class. Okay, and here I have already user repository bean object. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call my method which is user repository dot get all user data. This is my method, right? And this method is going to return some of the list data, user entity, and those data I will print on the console simply. Otherwise what I can do is I can write for each loop or user entity dot for each, and inside this let me write lambda expressions. Okay, and here we can write s out, and here we can pass our e, no need semicolon. So it will print my all those user entity objects. So right now we have a 3 1 2 3 101 102 103. So those all data will be printed on the consoles. Okay, so let's go and execute. So if I am going to my project custom query and run this project, okay, and let's see. So if you see here, user entity, it's written one query called select user id, user email, user name, user password from user table. So internally the Hibernate having a capability to generate this query. Okay, we have not generated this query, we have just given the instructions like we are writing a SQL query, and he have written the query for us. Okay, so that is the power of at the rate query annotations. So I hope you see, like this 3 data it's printed on the consoles. Okay, based on our query. What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this like our work is done for this one. Okay, let's comment it. Okay, next thing is what I'm going to do is here these methods we have done. I don't want to call this method now. Again, for example, I want to fetch the data based on some ID, right? So what I can do is I can write one more logic like user entity and get data, or maybe get user data based on ID. This is my method. This is our method. Whatever the name you want, you can give it. It's your choice. Completely your choice. Here you can pass your ID. Okay. If it is integer, pass integer. If it is a string, integer, whatever. Based on your data types, you can pass it. So integer, it's a ID. So this is the one method I have created. If I call this method, it will not work right now. Okay. Let me go and call and I will show you. Okay, what I'm going to do is here I'm going to call this method. What is the methods? User repository dot get user by ID. Get user data based on ID. Here I will pass 101. This is my ID. And if I try to store this data and if I try to print on the consoles user based data, okay, and let's see what we are getting the ISO. Okay, just I have written the method which is unknown method, which is not able to customize also. So it's generally saying like, hey, let me go down. Creating a bean with the name called user repository is fine, but if you go here and see, could not create query for the public abstract this user repository, this methods. Region failed to create a method to the abstract. So internally, no property user database found on the user entity. So it's saying like, hey, we are not able to prepare the query for that, these methods, because there is no suggestions, nothing instructions is happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the user repository, and in the repository I have to prepare @query. So write @query annotations. Inside the query annotations you can write value. Okay, it's a optional but you can write it. And what you have to write is from user entity ENTITT. Make sure you have given the proper class name of the entity class. So user entity where ID. So what is the field name here? Which is ID, not user ID, because we are not going to talk to table, we are going to talk to our class only. So ID equal to, here you have to pass this ID, right? So for that you have to write colon and pass your ID. If you pass here user ID, then you have to pass these things in the same way here also. Okay, you can give anything name here, that is your wish. Okay, let's compile this code and run it, and let's see we are getting the data or not. Right, so this time we have written the query based on the ID. We are going to fetch the data also. So if you see here, it's generating the query also. Let me show you. And it's fetching the data based on what, where user ID is what. Okay, and 101 data it's selected and it's printed here also. Okay, so what I have passed ID 101, right? Let's pass 102 and try to see. So what is the 102 details? Ajit Kumar. Previously it's a Prince Kumar. So let's go to the console and see the details. Now it's Ajit Kumar 102. Okay, so we are able to select the data from the database based on our which query? Custom query, which is with the help of @query, right? If you want or based on the two parameters, if you want to fetch the data from the database, or maybe you want to delete the data, you want to update the data, you want to insert the data, all operations you can do, all operations you can do, it's your wish. Okay, what you have to do is you have to write the SQL query, that's it. Only you need to do is SQL query. If I write here something called let me, okay, I will do remaining letters, but right now just I am showing you like how it will working. Okay, for example, you want to fetch data based on the two queries or maybe two fields. Okay, so what you can write, you can write user entity get data based on id and name, right? This is the query. So here I will pass integer id and the next parameter is string name, right? Or username, you can say user name. This is the two parameters, right? What you have to do, you have to write at the rate query. Okay, and inside the query you have to write the value which is your actual query of the SQL. So from user entity where id colon id equal to colon id and you have to write end id and what is the next thing, next thing is name. So name equal to colon user name, which is this parameter you have to pass here. Okay, and the same method you can call it from your main class. So let's go here and let's commit it. Okay, and user repository dot get based on name and id. Okay, so this is the method we have to call and you have to pass, let's capital SONU 103. So and in the double quote we can pass SONU. This is the methods, this is the method. Let's see SONU, it is fine. Let's assign this in one of the variables and then after print those data on the console. So s out data based on user id and name. Okay, and let's try to execute it. Okay, so if you see here, based on the two parameters it's going to fetch the data. So if you see where user tables is user id and another is user name, right? Based on these two parameters he fetches the data from the database. Okay, so I hope you understood the SQL query. Your task is to do the operations for some other operations like in the HQL itself you have to do the like select, right? Select I have done. You have to do insert. Okay, you have to do delete, you have to do update. So those things you have to do, okay, from your side. So if you are using something called insert or delete or update, in that case you have to specify this class as a one of the annotations, so you have to find out it. Okay, as of now I have given these details how you can fetch the data from the tables based on the HQL query. Now let's convert this HQL query into the what query? Normal native query. Those things you can do by the normal SQL query also. Okay, how? Let's see. So I'm going to the tables, okay, and in the tables, if you see, this is the query. If you execute, we can see this is the three details. Let's copy this, okay. It's the same query. I'm going to copy this and come to your repository, write one method to fetch list of the data. So I will write list of user entity, okay, user entity, users equal not users. Here we have to write get all users, and what we can do is it's done, and at the top of that you have to specify at the rate query, okay, at the rate query. So this is the fetch data from the tables based on the SQL query, and this is fetch data from table based on normal SQL query. That's it. Okay. What we have to do is here in the query you have to specify what your query. You have to pass here your query. So you can write here value equal to your native query, and you have to pass in one more parameters here, which is native query equal to true, so that by default the query parameter understanding, okay, this is the HQL query only, okay. But if you tell him, hey, it's not a HQL query, it's a native query, then he will do the operation based on the native query. If you not pass this native query equal to true, then he will understand this query is HQL query and he will give the error. Okay, so these things you have to keep in your minds while doing the operations with the SQL query. Make proper parameters as a native SQL query is true. Okay, now we are going to call this method get all users. So go to the your main class, comment these two lines, okay, and user repository dot get all users, it will return all users, and all users you can print in front of console, all users. That's it. Otherwise all users you can print with the help of the for each loop. So all users dot for each, and let's take the lambda expressions and s out, and here you can pass the remove the semicolon, and let's try to run this code. So based on your native query, select a star from tables, user tables, we are able to fetch this data, correct? These three records we are able to fetch. If you go to the repository and if you see here, this is the query. So if you see, this is the temp dbj schema name and this is the user table name. Let me remove the schema name, just give the table name. Is it going to give error or not? Let's see. If the two schema having a user table, then that time it will give the error. Okay, so right now we have unique table in all those schema which is user tables. So that's why we are not getting any issue. But if the multiple schema we have, not multiple schema, maybe like we have connected with our particular database, so it will not give the error. So you can just write select a star from user table also, that is also fine. Okay, we are able to fetch the data. Okay, let's go and fetch the data based on the some clause. So where email email is nothing but single quote pk22 ces@gmail.com. And if I run this query, you can see we are able to fetch this record. So just copy this, go to your repository class. Here you can write the method. What is the method? User entity and get user data by id by email. That's it. And here you can pass your email, which is a string, anything, it's your choice, your variable's name. And here you can annotate @query. Okay, and in the query you have to pass two things. One is value, which is your query exactly. So this is our query. Select a star from this one, you can remove it. Select a star from user tables where email equal to this one. Okay, so I don't want to keep the hard code email, so I will give colon and I will pass my this email, this value to here. But make sure you have to give the color, then only it will understood. Okay, this is the color and this is the value we are assigning it. If you write something called native query equal to true, then he will understood. Okay, this is the native query, so based on that he will perform the operations on that. Go to the, let me comment this. Okay, user repository dot find data, find users, get users based on email. And here you can pass the email, which is pk22 cs@gmail.com. This is the email ID of the user, so we are passing dynamic email ID and he will return based on this email ID filter user data based on the email, and those user data we can print on the console. Okay, it is simple. Let's try to run this query. If your email ID is correct, then it will fetch the data from the database. So if you see, based on this query, which is our native query, he get the data from the database, which is 1001 Prince Kumar, and this is the email ID. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's remove this column. Okay, and let's see what is the effect, how he preparing the query for that if we not given anything. We are getting the issue. Okay, so issue is something called this one, email equal to email. He not able to understand what he trying to say, or a query did not return a unique result. 3 results are found. Okay, so that is the mistakes which we don't have to do. Here what you have to pass, you have to pass the colon, and you can pass the semicolon also, that is also fine. There is no issue in that. Let me run this now. Yeah, it's properly able to fetch the data from the database. Okay, so I hope guys you understood how to fetch the data from the database based on the HQL query. Okay, so those are the query which is very important. Okay, and whenever you are doing operations, you have to be make sure how to do all those things. Okay, for example, let me do one more things. For example, you want to delete some data from the database. Okay, so you can just write the query and you can pass it. It's automatically do. So SQL query is very easy. Okay, so what you can do is we can do delete users deletes from where okay, it's not showing why. Okay, lots of things we can do, and we can delete the user also based on the some id or all user also you can do. So let's go to the and let's search it. Delete user in JPA based on SQL query. Okay, so if you search on the Google, it will give you some reports. You can go to this, or maybe you can go to this one. Delete from it's not supporting segregation, so let it be. So if you go here, it's saying like at the rate query. So simply what you have to do, at the rate query value equal to delete from table names where, and this is the column you can pass, and based on that you can delete it. Okay, in the same way, if you go here, okay, this is the one to one. Lot of things we have, you can do it. So you can try from your side like how to delete from the user tables. So delete from users underscore tables. Okay, user underscore tables. And but in the doing for the HQL, you have to do like that. Let me show you. So for example, if you want to delete users, so you can write void delete user by id. This is the methods. Okay, this method is going to take one id, so integer id, and let's close this methods. Here you have to write at the rate query. Okay, inside the query you can pass your native query, then you have to pass this one. If it is SQL query, then you have to pass like value equal to delete from what is the entity name. So delete from entity name is user entity where id equal to colon id. That's it. Okay, and it's showing it's a wrong as of now. Multiple marker at the same line, syntax error, enum identified to complete body. Let me write user table and native query equal to true, and here I will pass where user ID. So what is the table name? User underscore ID. So go to here and pass it. Okay, so this is the query. We don't want to do the semicolon. Okay. So this is the this is the native query. Delete from user tables where ID is this one, and let's call this method from your main class. Comment this user repository dot delete users by ID, and here you can pass your ID is 101. Okay, it will not return anything, it will just delete your users. Okay, so let's run this. If it is give any exceptions, we will see. So it's saying like, if you see here, delete from the user table where user ID is what, it's going to perform the operations, but he's saying like JDBC exception executing delete statement query causes statement that produce a result sets. So we have to annotate one annotations at top of that. Okay, the annotation is, I will show you. Let me this is the entity class, this is the repository. So this annotation is required at the rate transactional. Okay, so while doing a work with the tables, then this transaction annotation is required. So in or modifying, if you are doing with the repository, then at the rate modifying annotations you can put in top of your method name, so that is also fine. So let's go here and write at the rate modifying. Let's see it's a working or not. MODI modifying, it's not working here. At the rate transactional. Okay, this is the part of the transactional org Spring Data. Okay, transactional annotations. Okay, that is fine. What about modifiable? Modifying is coming from the data repository. Okay, and I will not write transactional as of now. Let's try it. In that case also, it's saying like update query or delete query, you have to mention transactional. Okay, so what we can do is we can write at the rate transactionals. Let's see. So if you see, this time it's executed this query, and data will be deleted from the database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see the select query. So just refresh the select query. So if you see, there is only two data now. So 102 I need to delete now. So here I will pass 102 and let's run this query. This query is also executed successfully. Go to the database, just refresh it. Only one data is available. Okay, and it's done. Okay, so only two things you have to do is one is what, at the rate modifying while doing with the delete or update or insert or transactional at the top of the your repository, or maybe in the service class, what are the methods you are using, in that you can mention it. Okay, in the next video we can see some details about it. Okay, thank you so much.